Emma Dendler. Thanks for joining our podcast today. I'm so excited to have you on. And I've been checking out your website, really learning a lot about you and your background and the importance of what you're doing. So excited to have you join us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And I know we were chatting a little bit, but it sounds like you're based out of Northern California in a
Mhm,
beautiful area called Eureka.
mhm.
And what brought you to Eureka?
Yeah, so my husband is a park ranger, and so he doesn't work for the national park, he works for the Bureau of Land Management. So that's kind of taken us all around the country for the last 2 years, and hopefully we'll be settled here for a while.
Oh, that is so cool. I got to tell you, that's so funny because my stepbrother is up in Seattle and he's actually a park ranger up there. And he
Oh,
goes out to
cool.
Mount Rainier and it's really cool to hear the stories and all the different tasks and things he has to do in the park system. So very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to start the Simple Environmentalist, and how did you begin your sustainability journey? But how in general did you get into it?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ohio, very rural part of the country where really didn't have any air pollution, any physical pollution, didn't really see a whole lots of the impacts of climate change, anything
Hmm.
like that. So it took me moving out of Ohio. I joined the Air Force right out of high school. I originally went to Texas, where there was a huge problem with lack of recycling. So that kind of opened my eyes to recycling. And then the Air Force took me to Okinawa, Japan, which is an island in
Hmm.
Japan, which is amazing. I miss it every day. But there was so much waste washing up on the shores. And so it kind of clicked for me like, oh, it doesn't really matter how good I am at recycling, how much I'm recycling.
Hmm.
It still might end up in the ocean, in other waterways, in nature in some capacity. So I need to focus on reduction. Um, from there, I started exploring different zero waste swaps, different impacts of pollution. How does our waste actually get recycled? I was asking myself all of these questions, doing all this research, and I thought, wait, surely somebody else has these questions too. What if I publish it on a blog? What if I make some videos about it? And that's kind of how it was born, was my curiosity about all of this environmental stuff and thinking that other people would want to have these answers as well.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, I mean, visibly, that's how you were intrigued. You've been able to travel to different parts of the country, the world, and to see the effects of it. Now, can I ask you? I've heard things about the island of garbage, or I forget what it's called.
But it's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And it basically, the whole Pacific Ocean, it's gigantic. The currents kind of form a vortex, and eventually it all concentrates in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It takes years and years for it all to get there. So it's not really an island. It's just a conglomeration of trash that, from a satellite looks like an island because it's so compact, it's so much. This is fishing waste, industry waste, individual person waste. So it's all sorts of kinds of pollution. Um, and just kind of a reminder that, yeah, your waste very well could end up in the ocean no matter where you live.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, just those impacts. And you think about the ocean, because visibly you can't see the ocean all the time, but to have that happen, it's such a tragedy that we do have this happening. But thanks to your efforts and the awareness, you know, it's great. We'll try to work towards, correcting some of these issues we have. So, what are some of the most common misconceptions about eco living and sustainability? I mean, I think these words are used so often, and I wonder if people just don't even understand what that truly means and the impact of them. So, what is the misconceptions?
Yeah, so I have two that come to mind. First, we'll talk about the word zero waste. That's kind of the most common word for the movement. And so many people think that that means you have to be perfect. You can't throw anything away. In fact, some people think that you can't even recycle. But really, the term zero waste, it stems from the movement wanting corporations and governments to change, and not necessarily us as the individual, as well as it's a goal to reduce what you send to the landfill by 90%. So you can still technically send 10% of your waste to the landfill and be considered zero waste. But mostly it's just kind of evolved into a search term for this kind of living. Um, so plenty of people think that that means you have to be perfect. That is far from the truth. You can be zero waste, you can be eco, you can be sustainable, and still send stuff to the landfill. You can still drive a car, you can still do some quote unquote wasteful things. What matters is that you're trying just a little bit more to be eco every single day. And the second really common misconception is that it has to be expensive. It's got to be expensive if you're shopping at the bulk store and you're buying all this fancy toilet paper and these fancy toothbrushes and all of this stuff. And it definitely can add up if you try to do that overnight, sure. But I've actually, like, since day one of my social media journey, I've made it an effort to prove that it does not have to be expensive. So I started a Zero Waste on a Budget series in 2020, proving that you can live zero waste totally for free. Simple acts like turning off the lights, recycling correctly, mending your clothes. And then even to this day, I just actually published a YouTube video today about how much money zero waste living actually saves me. And it's thousands of dollars per year
Oh, I'm
with,
sure.
yeah, with just simple stuff like thrifting, using the
Yeah.
library, and things like that. So, two common misconceptions that I try effortlessly to bust.
Yeah, and it's cool because you spent time in Japan, and I mean, that's where minimalism pretty much came from. And I wonder, like in this country, I feel there's so much commercialism. I mean, everything, everywhere you look, there's something that you have to buy, the fast fashion and all of that. I mean, it happens globally, but it's interesting because there are misconceptions. You think it's expensive. I did, however, try to buy toilet paper at Whole Foods, and that was expensive. And I was like, it must be organic or something. But there's definitely ways around it. I'm sure. So, how do you balance sustainability with practicality and with hobbies, technology, and just general our comfort? And so how, I mean, because there's always a new gadget coming out, and I'm notorious for it. I try to think of myself as being less purchasing less of those things that are kind of here for a little bit of time, and then I send it off to Goodwill. But like the heating blankets, I mean, I can't have enough of heating blankets in my house. So how do you suggest to go about reducing that?
That's definitely tricky, right? Because I can just say, "Quit buying the heating blankets," but, like,
Yeah.
if that's something that makes your life comfortable or even a necessity for you for whatever reason, I don't wanna say that to any certain person. So what I try to think for, like, I think everybody can apply in their life is to think before you buy. Do you already have something in your home that would serve this purpose? Will you actually use this item for a long time, or is it just trendy and you'll forget about it in a couple of weeks? And even if you do end up buying something on a whim or something that is absolutely a necessity to you, make that item last as long as possible. Don't like chuck it around. Don't put it in the back of a closet and forget about it. Take good care of it, mend it when it breaks. And at the very end of its life, when it no longer serves you, like you already mentioned, donate it, sell it, give it away instead of sending it to the landfill. So I think those are some ways that you can still implement stuff in your life that make you have joy and comfort and even some wants, not necessarily needs. 'Cause I think it is very important too to keep that joy in your life. Maybe that's also a misconception about zero waste is that your life now has to be boring because you can't do anything fun because it's all wasteful. But there
Yeah.
are ways that you can make your hobbies sustainable, such as shopping for your hobby material secondhand, finding a hobby that requires, nothing like hiking. You don't really need anything to go on a hike except for some shoes. Um, or watching the sunset, birding. Like there are plenty of hobbies out there that don't require you to consume stuff. So there's still plenty of ways to have joy in your life without having to buy so much stuff, but it really is tricky to get out of that mindset of just buying because it really is a cultural thing.
Where do you cut back personally?
Mm. Yeah, I used to be pretty extreme back in the day. I think a lot of people in the eco movement kind of go through a very extreme phase of reducing waste. And I kind of gave up all of my hobbies at one point. And I'm like, you know what? My
Yeah.
life is not fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I've started to implement some hobbies back into my life and making them eco. My biggest hobby is crocheting. So I will shop for yarn secondhand. I will shop at local yarn stores, natural fibers, and actually right behind my camera, I've got a rug that I'm working on that I'm using t-shirts for. So I take a
Wow.
t-shirt, I cut it up into about an inch thick strip and crochet it into a rug. And then also my shirt, Red Rock Canyon in Las Vegas. We really got into hiking kind of post COVID when we moved to Las Vegas. That has been a long hobby of ours as well. I love getting outside, connecting to nature, and truly, it doesn't take a whole lot of supplies to just get out there.
So, we're in the manufactured housing industry. And so, just asking you, um, personally, if you have knowledge around what we do, but what unique sustainability opportunities do you foresee for us in the manufactured housing, just industry and our communities?
Yeah. I would say definitely coming down to building materials, I
Hmm.
think. Um, I'm not too well
No,
versed in, like,
that's okay.
construction in
Yeah.
general, but, like, I know that there's plenty of materials out there that are really unsustainable, and there's a lot of innovation and moving towards using sustainable products. Um, I think also as the planet continues to warm, looking at ways that we can make our homes more efficient to keep them cooler instead of relying on AC. So that's things like ceiling fans, putting like green spaces on roofs. That kind of depends on like the size of the home. But I've seen this in cities. They put rooftop gardens and it does cool the homes, the apartments, the offices more. So looking at things like that as well.
Yeah. And we work with a lot of manufacturing partners, and the process is really interesting. So one of our homes that we buy from, we have a Champion is one of our manufacturing partners, Clayton Homes, there's a few, but they can actually build a home and fill only 1 barrel worth of waste. And that waste that's in that barrel is recyclable, which is so cool. And it's nice to hear because, site built homes, there's a lot of waste. You're out in the elements, there's leftover material. So when it's done in a factory like this, they're really able to put some controls around it, which is cool. So, and then what do you think about smaller living? Obviously, it helps reduce sort of the environmental impacts. But are there some ideas, tools, suggestions that you can give us surrounding smaller spaces? How to reduce waste?
Yeah, so I actually lived in an RV for 2 years. Very small space as well. And I've talked about this on my channel before that it accidentally turned me into a minimalist. And therefore, I was reducing waste because I couldn't buy as much as I wanted to because I didn't have room for it. So, honestly, I think everybody moving into smaller spaces would be great for the environment because we often move into these gigantic homes and think that we have to fill them full of stuff or not even that you have to fill it full, but you can buy that item because you have somewhere to store it, even if you never end up using it, which it can go to waste. So living in a small space is just kind of inherently sustainable. You're using less lighting, you're using less heating and cooling, and you have less stuff to store stuff, therefore you're buying less.
What do you think about the Keurigs? And we
Mm.
have a Keurig here, and one of our colleagues that sits in a department right next to us, she said, "Don't use Keurigs because of all the pods. They're not recyclable." I had no idea. I'm sure they've probably come a long way, and maybe they
Mhm.
are that way now. And so our machines here are just straight from the straight. It's a coffee maker that there's no pods or anything like that.
Mm.
But I always worry about that. Every time at home we do have a Keurig because I don't know how to make coffee except just push the button, add the water.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings because it does help reduce food waste. If you make a full pot of coffee, 12 cups, and you only
That's
drink 1
true.
or 2 of
Yeah.
those cups, now that coffee is wasted, that water is wasted, that electricity is wasted. So I do like that it does control the portions and you can drink precisely 1 serving size. But yeah, like you said, it is plastic, not recyclable. For a couple reasons, the type of plastic is too thin to be accepted for recycling most often, and it is contaminated with food waste. But they do offer, like, little, stainless steel baskets that you can fill with, your Folgers or your Starbucks grounds, and it will reduce that plastic in that way. So, there are ways to use a Keurig sustainably, especially if you already have the technology, the machinery. It is best to use whatever tech that you already have available, so take it and make it sustainable.
So we're heavy recyclers in our house. And I have to ask this question because my husband washes everything to the
Mm.
most pristine. It goes in the recycling bin. Even if it's like a seltzer water that's not sticky, he will wash it out. Is that a necessity? Because if you tell me it's not, I can't wait to go home and tell him he's wrong.
So recycling does need to be clean and dry.
Okay.
But I would agree that washing a seltzer water is probably a little overkill. Um, so typically just a quick rinse is fine. You're really gonna be mostly concerned about stuff with food in it. So like
Yeah.
a pasta sauce jar, a peanut butter jar, a can with beans in it. And even then, it doesn't need to be scrubbed clean with a dish and some soap. Water is fine, and as long as you can't visibly see any food, it's fine, especially because metal and glass will typically go through a washing cycle at the recycling facility.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't mean you can put it in your bin dirty, typically because in the US, we have single stream recycling, which means all of the materials go into the same bin and then it gets sorted at the facility. So it could still contaminate the paper, the plastic, which doesn't get as sanitized as the stuff that can withstand those levels of heat.
For the listeners out there, if someone new to wanting to get into being more environmental, what would be the top 3 suggestions or ways to start?
Mhm. Okay, let's do the 3 easiest things. Definitely water and energy conservation. It's so easy. It'll save you money. It's free. So just being mindful to turn off the lights when you leave a room. Maybe cut your shower short by 30 seconds. Don't let the water run while you brush your teeth. Very, very simple stuff like that. Um, Number 2 would be it's called the Big Four. Um, and that is a reusable water bottle, a reusable coffee cup, a reusable grocery bag, and reusable utensils. Taking all that stuff with you when you go to a restaurant, when you go to the grocery store, when you travel, can reduce so much waste. Just those 4 things all on its own, and you don't have to buy a whole bunch of swaps all on their own. And number 3, I think this would go in with my other like category, would be inspire others. It absolutely matters that one person is living an eco life, but it matters even more if they inspire a second person and then that person inspires another person. And that's just a whole butterfly chain effect of people inspiring others and everybody reducing waste all at the same time.
That I love those. I love those top 3. Those are simple, easy things that we could do daily. So you mentioned YouTube. So tell us more about where we can find you. You know, you said blogs. Are there books?
So you can find me at thesimpleenvironmentalist.com. And from there, you can find the rest of my socials. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, a little bit on Pinterest, not so much. Those are my main ones, though. So I've got long form content, short form content, photos, graphics, everything in between. And I did just launch an ebook last year called Going Zero Waste in a Year. Each month is a different topic. So 1 month is energy conservation, 1 month is water conservation, 1 month is zero waste in the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. Each with 30 tips, and it can start any time of the year. Any time of the year, you can pick it up, put it down. And the goal is to go from knowing nothing about zero waste to knowing maybe not everything, but knowing a good bit about zero
Yeah.
waste by the end of the year.
Oh, that's awesome. And I was on your website. Your website's awesome. It's
Well,
so
thank
cool.
you.
It is so cool. And I love the pictures of you and your husband, all the things that you do. That
Yeah.
is really cool. I really appreciate your time today, Emma. And what a joy to chat with you. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see that rug of yours too, all out of
Oh,
t-shirts.
right. Yeah. T-shirt quilts are also really popular, but I
Yeah.
can crochet and I can't sew, so I picked a rug.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you, Emma, and everything that you're doing. And thanks for joining us today. And
Yeah.
you know, our listeners, hopefully they get some great ideas from this podcast today. But appreciate all that you do.
Yeah. This was so much fun. Thanks so much for having me.